Up to 179,000 people had to be evacuated at some point. That's more than some of the population of some of our states. How do we deal with a catastrophe where we were literally not prepared? To us here in San Leandro, we're not ready. And by the way, we think the medical industry would be very interested in this solution, $150 billion. Well, we believe that Beckn has a huge role in that. And our partner, Automicle, has already built mobility functions based on Beckn.
Hi, everybody. I believe people have joined in all over the world. I am here sitting in Bangalore. Debbie is in San Leandro. Please let us know in the chat box from where are you joining in and what time zone are you in. It's super early for her and it's pretty late for me. Not pretty late, but yeah. Well, Debbie, how have you been? What is up with you in general?
I am so excited about 2025. To the Beckn community, ignore the mishigas that's happening in Washington, D.C. right now. We don't care anymore. It's all about community. It's about local engagement. So I'm doing really well. I'm excited. There's all these challenges happening in the world. Jeff, good to see you.
Hey
All
there.
these challenges happening in the world, but I truly believe that we are literally at the precipice, and that Beckn's role in this is now going. It's finally the time. It's like there's a time and a place for everything. Certainly, the fires in LA, which we'll talk about in a little bit, for us are it's the clarion call. We can no longer hide from this.
Yeah.
And we'll talk a little bit about the numbers and the damage and what we've learned from it already. But, so while it's a horrible thing to have happened, wow, talk about timing in terms of the work that we're trying to do around resilience and digital public infrastructure. So sorry, I'm already spinning into my thing because that's what I do, but I'm feeling really good right now about the future, to be perfectly honest, because I think we have the tools to deal with some of the disasters that are coming ahead.
Let's get into why we are here today and why this is particularly exciting as a conversation. Because sometimes we live in a world wherein we understand or believe there are some problems, but they often go unnoticed. Maybe they are viewed by the authorities as not important enough to solve, or just somehow represents a population that is not in the focus per se, from a political standpoint, from a governing standpoint, whatever it might be. Those problems, although significant, go unnoticed on so many levels. So many people suffer, yet there seems to be no solution coming up. I think today's conversation will talk about how we as communities can come together and empower ourselves in solving the problems that we face. Even if there's not a lot of support available in the ecosystem, let's create that support for ourselves. And to that, I would like to welcome Debbie. Thank you for joining us, Debbie. And like I said, we're talking about solving people's problem. Debbie has had a decades long career in trying to help people out, fight for different causes, making technology a centerpiece to do so. And I think some of you who might have tuned in earlier would have experienced her energy. To that, let me also add she is a podcaster. Very welcome, Debbie. So happy to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here. And I really appreciate your bringing out the podcast Smart City Diaries. We have a team that includes Brandon Ketcher of Lost Summit Films and Zach Borja of Borja Plus, a media team, as well as my daughter, who's amazing on camera. And so she was my co-host on that podcast. What we realized is that young people do not have an understanding generally of how systems work. So whether it's the internet and how actually all that information leaves your requests leave your computer, go into the ether and then the answers come back in a split second. Like, how does that work? How does electricity work? What's the future of transportation? So the initial idea is we really wanted to travel to 10 different cities around the world and explore the intersection of geography, culture, and technology in each of those cities. Well, guess what? COVID hit with all the splendorous changes that brought to us, including the ability to really be able to connect internationally via Zoom call. So Zoom didn't exist before. So that was the purpose behind Smart City Diaries. We really hope that with this international partnership, we can actually resume the work on that, because I think the work of informing and educating now becomes it's now critical in the times that we have right now. We're talking about energy, and the energy that we're focused on here in California right now is the fires in Los Angeles. So while we've been talking about resilience and what that means for a long time, we're seeing a city that's been hit, of which the population that's impacted. So remember, it's not just the fires themselves, but Los Angeles sits in a bowl. So the mountains ring Los Angeles, keeping the toxic fumes from all of these plastics and concrete and wood that's been burning. It's sitting in that bowl. It's impacting an area that has more residents than 41 of our US states. So imagine that. Up to 179,000 people had to be evacuated at some point. 179,000 people. That's more than some of the population of some of our states. So how do we deal with a catastrophe where we were literally not prepared? So I think that the LA fires have become a clarion call, as I said before, to us that there is no time to lose. And in fact, in the Bay Area, we in 1991 experienced our own firestorm where 27 people died. Right now, the LA fires, they have 25 people have died, 30 plus people are missing. We lost 3,000 homes. LA fires, they've lost 12,000 structures. They're beginning to compare it to Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans back in the early 2000s, where the total damage, 1,800 people lost their lives there. And the total damage was about 150 billion. They're already saying that the damages here are 300 billion. And then they're talking about rebuilding. Rebuilding what? And how are they rebuilding it? So we have to think of resilience in a lot of different ways. It's the resilience that is going to be needed when the emergency happens. But we in our group like to think of it actually before the emergency happens. How do you create resilience in a community where they're actually getting the services they need today? Which means that they'll know, the muscle memory will be built in, and they'll know tomorrow where they have to go in the emergency. So there's a lot more examples that I can bring up that, excuse me, are even local to us here in San Leandro. We're not ready. So the other reason why San Leandro is a focus of mine, I was Chief Innovation Officer here. I've worked in local governments for decades. So I understand this community. I live here. I understand the politics. I'm connected with the people. I'm engaged with the community. And I'm going to leave this for the next question with the understanding that the only way we deal with these issues now is to engage with communities first. Find out what they need and how they need to have the services delivered to them, keeping in mind the essential elements of communication, mobility, and energy. How do we make sure they have it today so that they're prepared for the emergency or disaster? So that's by way of introduction.
I think people who are on this call if this hasn't excited you enough, I don't know what will. Thank you, Debbie, for that introduction and really helping us grasp the dire need and how bad the situation is. Because people probably sitting far away, everybody kind of knows that there is the fires going on and they have created significant damage, but we don't really know the depths of it. Thank you for letting us know. And I think that sets a lot of context for the conversation that we're supposed to be having today. On that note, since we've been talking about communities and you often used the word resilience, can you help us understand what does resilience really mean, especially in a community need or a community context?
So we actually take our nod from the Urban Sustainability Directors Network here in the United States. A lot of cities, a lot of communities have what we call chief sustainability officers or sustainability managers, whose focus really is on SDGs, so the United Nations SDGs. How do we actually make those real in communities? And the way that the urban USDN is looking at it is we need to set up resilience hubs. So these are physical places that contain all of the elements that people need to survive and eventually to thrive after a disaster. So these resilience hubs need to have energy. They need to have communication. They need to be a communication hub, and they need to have the transportation options. But if we don't plan for it, those options today, to meet the needs of the residents today, we won't be ready tomorrow. I mean, that's just it, right? You can picture it. It's like we can plan all we want, but we just experienced a tsunami warning here in San Leandro because there was an earthquake up by Eureka, and they thought that perhaps the water would come in through the Golden Gate and then spread out through the bay. And I live about 7 feet above sea level. So I'm right, my community of 366 spaces are occupied by seniors. They don't text, they don't use email. How do you prepare them to evacuate immediately? And my gosh, where are we supposed to evacuate to? So I literally had this experience where I had to call the mayor saying, what's the plan? Well, everybody can't call the mayor to ask what's the plan. And to make sure that my community, which is a private community, that the police officers and whoever the service workers would come in here and help us as well. Mayor told me it's a private community. We can't come in unless we're invited. So you have all of these different issues that can actually cause death, cause injury and death if people are not prepared. It's a genuine emergency. So our goal for resilience is to create centers that give people, fill people's needs today first. So that in turn has led us, so there's a lot of different things going on in San Leandro, including the recent release of a age-friendly city report that was funded by a senior international or national senior nonprofit group called AARP. One of the things that they identified as being really problematic for seniors, transportation. So we started looking it up because if you're a senior and you don't drive and you need to reach medical appointments or any other appointments, you generally have to rely upon surface transportation, public transportation, Lyft, or more often an adult child who has to take time off of work to bring you someplace. So we in turn then discovered that a $4.4 trillion medical industry has a $150 billion big problem. Missed medical appointments, $150 billion. So the first step in creating this resilience for us is using digital public infrastructure as represented by Beckn and our partner in Holland, the Netherlands, Automicle. And I'm delighted to see Jeff is here from that organization to work with us today. We're developing a proof of concept that will enable the buyer, on the one hand, the senior who needs access to reliable transportation to get to her medical appointment. And wow, she has a couple of things that are kind of challenges for her. She's in a wheelchair, she speaks only Cantonese, and she's blind. How do we enable her to get the transportation that she needs, the resilience that she needs today, so that she can make her medical appointment and continue to do all the medical procedures that she needs to stay well? Well, we believe that Beckn has a huge role in that, and our partner Automicle has already built mobility functions based on Beckn. So imagine this same woman, she is talking into her LG TV. We've already talked to LG Nova. I think that's a pretty cool idea. She's talking into her smart TV. She's talking into her SMS app. She's talking into WhatsApp, and she's simply ordering the ride. It goes through Beckn protocol. It goes through the Automical BAPs, BPPs, through to the service providers, of which perhaps there's 10 of them, potentially. Only 2 of them have the ability to serve her. So those are the only 2 that come back to her that says, yes, we can help you. And and if we do this right, she's already paid for it, as she can pay for it through the app, through the ride. So she doesn't have to go through all what we call the mishigas of going to 211.org. So we have a system here, 211.org, where it enables you to go to a website that you can see all of the different services that might be available to you. Oh my gosh. So you get on there and you try to figure, okay, what service? Okay, I want transportation. All right. Then you click on transportation, and there's a whole PDF series of transportation providers. You have no idea really what they serve, who they serve, and you have to click through every single one of them. Oh, and if you're blind, forget it, right? If you simply are not self-sufficient to be able to read that, you're done. So we're working with Automical to create that proof of concept, working with transit agencies first, and we plan by the end of March to have hopefully our first 100 inquiries. So AI will be on the front end, Beckn in the middle, to connect these what we call buyers and sellers seamlessly. So when we talk about resilience, it has to start with resilience today. Because if she cannot get out of her house even today to get to her doctor's appointment, and by the way, we think the medical industry would be very interested in this solution, $150 billion. If she can't get her needs met today in an emergency, she might die. So that's how we're thinking of resilience, and it absolutely is focused on communication, energy, and mobility, because those are the things that you need today and in an emergency.
Absolutely. I think you touched base, I think, while you were trying to walk us through the needs and what does resilience actually mean. And you often talked about communication. It just got me thinking that yes, while there is a hub of information, via the Beckn protocol, via the open networks, it kind of reaches everybody. But right now, I think we're still not that inclusive. Why not enable on the consumer end, add a layer of AI agents on top of it and make it multilingual? So you're now just not, I mean, no, you can be speaking English, Hindi, Chinese, whatever language you speak. And today the world is really a global place.
Exactly. And so we absolutely, so here in, I don't how many of you know much about San Leandro. So let me just give you some geographical points on the map. So y'all know where San Francisco is, right? On the bay. There's a huge bay that comes in through the San Francisco gate. And then around the bay, we have a bunch of cities and counties adjacent, that are literally are located around the bay. So across from San Francisco, across the bay, is city of Oakland, California. You've probably heard of Oakland, California. They're kind of struggling a little bit. And then there's San Leandro. We have 90,000 people, over 15 square miles, as opposed to Oakland, which has 450,000 people, 52 square miles. We're a city that makes things. So we have a large industrial base still here. Now industrial Internet of Things, because we have a 20-mile fiber optic network in San Leandro, which enables us to think big like this. So the infrastructure now, we begin to understand how important infrastructure is. So WeAccel has a model called the community hierarchy of needs. It's based on Maslow's personal hierarchy of needs, where there are foundational needs that must be met. Then there's safety needs that must be met. And then there's, on the third level, the sense of belonging. How do I see things in this community that feel familiar to me, that make me feel welcome? But right now in the United States, we are struggling after 50 years of disinvestment in infrastructure. So if infrastructure is what everyone needs to survive, then frankly, we don't, and if we focus on that, we don't need to worry about diversity, equity, and inclusion, because those have become very ugly words in the United States. It's unfortunate, but it is true. If we just focus then on people's needs and make sure that at the base level, their needs are taken care of, well, then everyone's needs are taken care of. And we don't need to use those words that cause so much division over here. So a focus on infrastructure is really, really important now for resilience, because we discovered in the LA fires, they had 3 million gallons of water set aside for emergencies, 3 huge towers filled with water just for the fire station. It ran out in just a few hours because nobody had anticipated a storm like this. The fire department had received several cuts in the last year, $17 million. It impacts the kind of staffing that you can have. So there wasn't enough firefighters around. So infrastructure now becomes really critical, and infrastructure starts today. It doesn't start tomorrow when the emergency happens. We have to build in the resilient infrastructure today. And that means when they start rebuilding those houses, boy, I hope they don't put it up just stick and mortar like they've done before, because it will simply burn down again. So when we talk about resilience, it really does begin today. And the digital public infrastructure, which is a word that not too many people except Bill Gates and Nandan and Sujit and Pramod are talking about, right? It's digital public infrastructure for the people. So it's how can we deliver services to them in a seamless way? And that's really what we're talking about today in terms of the importance of DPI and resilience.
In case here people in the audience are still not very familiar with the concept of DPIs, let me put it into a little bit of perspective, going back to what we've been talking to Debbie till now. So Debbie has described many problems that the community faces. Multiple strategies or solutions exist. When you try to visualize this ecosystem, you'll understand how fragmented it is. And it is operating in silos. And nodes or these systems are not talking to each other or are not connected to each other. And this is a classic problem of how we humans over-engineer, add complexity to things that are not required. We can have a simple path from going point A to point B, but we will choose to go like this. So it is a lot, DPG or DPI thinking is a lot about getting away from all of the chaos, truly identifying what the core need is and simply solving for it with everybody with them, involving everybody in building of that solution so that it automatically caters for the need of different or marginalized groups because their voices are now heard.
Right. Think of it as just connecting the dots, right? If you're building an ecosystem, everything is connected, right? I hope all of us understand that now, right? The climate, the environment, we're all indelibly connected to all of this, to each other, to the frogs and the bees and the plants. Their health is our health. So if you think of the ecosystem, you have to connect these stakeholders, right? Who's all involved in this? And including the stakeholders that don't have a voice, the frogs and the bees and the birds. That's the ecosystem we have to look at. How do we seamlessly connect all of this? Let me give you an example. So my partner, Ann Marcus, and I, we participated on a national project up in Portland. We explored the ideas of schools as community resilience hubs. It makes sense, right? Usually most communities, and I assume this is in India too, around the world, you're within walking distance of a school because your kids go to school there. There's an elementary school, maybe there's schools of higher learning. These are places that are generally considered public spaces. Yet we don't all, as a community, always feel welcome there. But that's where we're naturally going to go in an emergency. What we discovered, however, was, Portland, this was in Portland, Oregon, they have many wonderful emergency agencies that are preparing for floods, earthquakes, the infrastructure. They don't talk to each other. Okay, let me just say that again. They don't communicate effectively with each other. So they're each making plans that sometimes there's going to be places that are missed. There'll be places that will have too many resources compared to others because they're not coordinating. This is where I believe Beckn can really, and digital public infrastructure is really, really needed. How do we make sure that the communication, the portfolio of services and products on the governmental side or the nonprofit or the non-governmental agency side, how do we make sure that people can seamlessly connect to them without going through all the stuff that they have to do now, a separate app, searching Google. My seniors here, some of them are on oxygen tanks. This is not what they do. They're not going to get the service they need by going through technology. It has to wrap itself around them now. I think we're far enough along in technology. Instead of us going to technology, it needs to wrap itself around us.
Absolutely. And I think that is the true ethos of what DPG, DPI represents and what is the idea behind it. For everybody, taking everybody together. On that note, folks, Debbie will take questions if you have any. So feel free to drop them in the comment box. And probably towards the end of the session, maybe Debbie can talk to some of you.
I'd love that.
Yeah, community engagement.
And I can't emphasize that enough because those of us in the technology field, and we have a lot of brothers, mostly brothers, not too many sisters, as engineers. We hope that more women will come through. I'd love seeing Ansha here and the rest of the women that are gathered here because we really need to all of us be engaged in this.
Yes.
But specifically, we need to put community first. There's too much of a temptation on the part of our engineering brothers and sisters to lay down the technology and then say, okay, now we're going to teach you to use it when nobody asked for it. And nobody wants it shoved down their throats. Another great example here in this continent. So Toronto, Ontario, Canada, they have 17 acres of waterfront that they really decided, oh, this is going to be so cool. We're going to have a smart community. So they put out an RFP, and who responded and who they finally selected was Sidewalk Labs, which is a subsidiary of Alphabet, parent of Google. What could go wrong? So when they finally presented their ideas to the community, by the way, they did not go to the community first and ask them what they wanted. They basically built a smart city from the internet up. So literally street warmers in the streets, cameras everywhere, and the community universally came back to them and said, we don't want this. What about security? What about privacy? Why are these cameras all over the place? We don't like this. You didn't ask us. We don't like this. After spending millions of dollars on the project, Sidewalk Labs in early 2020 said, oh, well, you know what? COVID's gotten in the way. We're not going to proceed. Actually, the community said no. So that's why community engagement, I'm going to say this again and again to my brothers and sisters out there who are engineers and you think your technology is the baddest ass thing that you've ever seen. You've got to work with community first to find out what they need. Then you tailor your technology to their needs, not to what you think is sexy.
I think when you're talking about effectively engaging with the community, we cannot leave the element of trust out of the conversation.
That's the whole point. Yeah, that's trust is the whole point. So when I talk to you about the Toronto example, right? The community basically said, we don't trust you. You didn't come to us first. We don't trust you, therefore we will kill your deal. And they did. They just came out in just thousands and said, we don't want this. And a big company like Alphabet had to say, cry uncle and say, no, I'm done. Can't do this. So the element of trust has to do first between people. And that's why it's very important when you're going to a new community, there has to be some kind of public champion. So I do consider myself a champion for San Leandro because I know everybody. I can make the connections happen because they trust me. So it has to start with trust. And then bringing that trust, not just to the elected leaders, but I'm very much engaged in, I'm a leader in the San Leandro Resilience Hub Network, which I'm happy to talk to you about. It's growing. It's very much a baby at this point, but we intend to do things, especially now inspired by LA. I'm involved with the Senior Commission, right? Because Senior Mobility Project, we need to have them engaged with it. I'm engaged with my city council. They see me sitting in the corner every Monday evening. They know I'm there watching. So the important part of this trust building is to literally engage with each other. And then you can bring your ideas to the community when you have trusted people bringing the ideas to the community. You can have a great conversation about it. People can discuss it. They can disagree with it, but at least they have the basis for a good conversation that can result in a decision. So trust, we're going to have trust in two ways: trust people to people and trust in the technology. And I know we really poked at Beckn. Our group here that on the US side was like, trust, but what about the security? What do you mean Beckn has no security built into it? That doesn't make any sense to us. So it takes a while to get to understand how it works, but we understand that trust is a big part of it. So whether we're doing it through registries or however we're going to be doing that in the future, and Sujit says, oh no, Sujit, so it's like, no, we're going to get rid of registries in the future. We won't need them. They're too complicated. Okay. However we're going to do it, trust has to be key to whatever we're doing. Thank you
Absolutely.
for that question, Ancha.
I think if you're liking the questions, I'm doing my job well.
Good.
Awesome, Debbie. I think we've been talking up until now a lot about how these concepts, essentially DPGs, DPI, Beckn protocol, open networks, work, and how they are potentially the key to unlocking solutions to a lot of problems that the world faces today. But we won't be doing this justice if we don't talk about real life examples, because
Yeah.
we deserve to tell our community about what is really happening, and it is in action. It's not just a theory anymore. There's so much happening on the ground. On that note, you have been working on some projects. Mobility seems to be an area of passion for you, and we also discovered how mobility will play a key piece in such emergencies, how it is a crucial part of the infrastructure. So can you talk about a little bit about the senior mobility project and innovations in parking? How are you?
Yes. So I've told you, already given you the numbers. So whenever you're trying to solve a problem, it's really good to understand the financial extent of the problem you're trying to solve. So with missed medical appointments, $150 billion problem. Now, we don't know exactly how many of that are seniors, but I look around my community and I'm guessing there's a lot of seniors. And so we're trying to collect the data, and that's why we're working with the ARP, Association for the Advancement of Retired Persons. I believe that's what it's called, because they have amazing data, and I didn't realize that they were so technologically advanced. Just went to the California Electronics Show in Las Vegas. Couldn't believe all of the health products, et cetera, that have been sponsored by this senior organization. So how do you connect the dots on this? The Senior Mobility Project, we're going to start with a proof of concept with connecting paratransit, because the city and the county both pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to paratransit providers to provide services for seniors, to get them to appointments, to get them to their shopping center. These buses travel around all day long, empty. Empty. I don't know how they get away with it, but the service providers seem to be quite fine with this situation because they keep driving around empty, and the city doesn't know how to solve this problem. So we believe with our partners with Automicle that we can actually help to solve this problem. So I described a little bit about the senior who is trying to get to her medical appointment, and she has some disabilities. How can we find the right seamlessly, so she's not frustrated that she can't figure it out, that she's seamlessly able to connect and they're able to provide that service. So that then provides the proof of concept for a much larger plan. So interestingly enough, here in the Bay Area, we have a commission, a Metropolitan Transportation Commission, that actually does all of the transportation coordination, or at least it tries to, for 9 different counties in the Bay Area, who all have their own transportation systems. And our partner Moet Mishra from Automicle came here late last year, and he decided he was going to he was not going to get a car. Brave soul. Not going to get a car, and he was just going to use the transportation systems to get to wherever he needed in the Bay Area. It's a pretty big Bay Area. I think he downloaded like 9 different apps in order to be able to get around. Nothing intersected. I was very little coordination between BART, which is our Bay Area Rapid Transit, our large one that goes around the Bay, the different bus companies within every county, and then, of course, paratransit, any of the other medical agency, paratransit agencies, none of these are connected or interoperable. And MTC set a goal for 2050 to have this interoperability in place. We think 2050 is an awful long ways off. And when Moet was here with us and Marcus, and we were going around to the different officials, Moet and I were just looking at each other and go, 2050, we could do that next year. We could get it done with Beckn. We could get it done. So of course so the idea is with the Senior Mobility Project, a proof of concept where we show how digital public infrastructure can improve services for people. We then can expand to the bus systems within San Leandro. We start there, AC Transit, BART, and then that starts to expand around the Bay. So when you come to visit our beautiful Bay Area, you don't have to rent a car. And you have one beautiful Automical interface that tells you, oh, if I want to get from here to Danville, this is exactly what I have to do to get there. Oh, I pay for it right there. So that's the idea, to make transportation simple, stupid for anybody who wants to use it, which is why we're starting off with the Senior Mobility Project.
Senior Mobility Project, when you talk about citizens of a certain age, let's say we remove the technological interface. Is transportation that harder even then?
Yes, it's horrible. So, for example, the paratransit agencies that supply most of the contracted work between the county and the city, they all have apps that you can register online. Only 2.5% of the seniors use it. Most of them call. Phone. So we will have a phone interface as well. But we're going to try to get them off of that, to try to dissuade them, because it's so easy to use WhatsApp. Just use WhatsApp. Just use your text messaging system to order it, and you're fine. You don't need an app. So yes, the problem is absolutely, it's right in front of us. We can see it when every time I see an empty bus driving, a senior bus driving by, empty, 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 empty. I can't even tell you how frustrating it is. Empty. So yes, we need this.
Highlights a very interesting point. While we're also talking about a digital overload, senior citizens not being able to interact with technology, it's not the digital system that's broken. It's the
No,
rudimentary physical system that's broken too, in a similar fashion.
exactly. And that's why we have to engage with people and create trust, because seniors are the largest growing element in the United States, as they probably are elsewhere, everywhere around the world. And at the same time, we're extremely diverse here in San Leandro. Probably 35% of our population is Asian. Another 35% is Latino. The rest is a mixture of black and white. Well, that's a language barrier. So we have language issues here. In my park, most of the people that are moving into the new homes here are Asian. And for many of them, English is a second, third language, right? It's not something that they're comfortable conversing in. So we have to be able, so the digital public infrastructure, as you talked about earlier, Anja, has to be able to work with people regardless of what their core language is. I mean, we here in the United States, regardless of all the crap you're hearing out of our incoming president, we do value our immigrants. I'm a child of an immigrants myself from Holland. I understand what it's that we've built the country. And I think that in order to make sure that everyone feels included and that trust is built, we do need to deal with the language issue and not insist that people have to speak our English in order to be engaged and involved. So we want them to feel involved wherever they are in their life. And you can imagine with the Senior Mobility Project, this is just the beginning, right? If we can prove it for them, youth and seniors are the ones that use public transportation the most. We want to make it really easy for them to use and hopefully inexpensive as well, because it's also very expensive to use public transportation in the Bay Area, as Mohit can tell you. So we have a lot of problems to solve. But if we can make it seamless, if we can make transportation seamless, and move more people from their cars into public transportation, because it's so easy to use. I mean, when I go to Amsterdam, I don't worry about renting a car. I know I can get anywhere in the city, especially using the Automicle app. I can go anywhere. And also parking. So I know in India, right, we share the issues around too many automobiles and parking. So one of the most pressing challenges that every city in California has right now is there's a brand new rule in that we're not allowed to park within 16 feet of an intersection because it impedes pedestrians being able to see them when you're crossing the road. How do we even identify cars that are in that situation now, that are parked illegally, let alone enforcing it?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to work with Automical in the city, because this is a no-brainer, to be able to geolocate all of those spaces around the city and at least alert the city at some point that there's someone illegally parked there, so they can be given a warning or eventually a ticket. The idea that we have to be able to, and so one of the things that Automical is working now is the full stack, right? So we have to be able to go from identification of the problem to full enforcement. So these are all wonderful challenges for us to discover and to work on together. And that's why I really am excited about this idea of addressing the Beckn community. So you can see we're all sharing similar challenges. Just let's work on the problems together.
Absolutely. And I think I will drop, since we've been talking about mobility, I want to drop a fun fact. I'm not sure if you know it or how many of the audience knows it. But 5 years ago, when Nandan, Pramod, and Sujit were brainstorming about this idea, which was not called Beckn then, it was just an idea, all they wanted to do was solve for mobility. They,
Really?
yes.
Oh, so Namayatri then. That's why
First,
Namayatri took place.
Namaya, there's a precursor or a predecessor to Namayatri also. It was called Kochi Open Mobility Network. So Kochi in India is a city in Kerala which supports multimodal transportation. It's ferries, trains, taxis, and of course, planes, aeroplanes. And the idea was again the same, interoperability, fixing silos. So with Open Mobility Network, we created one interface powered by Beckn protocol, wherein you could book no matter what mode of transportation you wanted to take, a bus, a train, from that one single interface, you will be able to plan your end-to-end journeys, at least within the city. That was the first ever Beckn implementation around three.
Is it actually implemented? Is it a thing?
It implemented. Now it is under the larger ONDC network here in India.
Yes.
But yeah, it was live, saw good success, and then after that, the second big thing, the thing that really made waves was Namayatri. Namayatri came along,
Right.
first million rides, no marketing budgets, no nothing, in just a couple of months. And it was just because the only reason why it was successful is because it was solving a problem for both the auto drivers and the people who were
Exactly.
booking the rides. They were just making more
Supply.
money, nobody eating on their shares. So they adopted it just like that. A solution they probably have been waiting for years. Such a simple thing.
Exactly. And I think those are the kinds of, when we start thinking about Beckn and digital public infrastructure and the problems that we're trying to solve, so much of it is just a it's just a connection problem, right? So for example, our resilience hubs here in San Leandro have identified food, and I couldn't believe it, right? This is the United States of America, Silicon Valley. Food is the number one problem in our city. Access to safe, affordable, healthy food. I was stunned. Okay, so now let's think about that in terms of a Beckn, solving a Beckn problem. So we know that it's not because we don't have enough food. It's because of the distribution of the food. How do you get the food to the people who need it? And how do you get to the people to the food? And then, of course, you have to be able to cook it, etc. So, I mean, in the United States, we have all sorts of providers. Alameda County Food Bank, there's all the restaurants, there's people with orange trees in their backyard. How do you connect these various supply sources to the people that are standing outside of Bethel Presbyterian Church every Thursday? The line goes down the block and around the corner. They always run out of food. Access to that healthy food that the church is giving away. How do you get them there? And how do we expand that so it's not just Bethel Presbyterian who are doing this, but that it's all over so that people can access it? I mean, I don't know how those people, did they drive there? Did they take a bus there? Are they just from the neighborhood? And if they are just from the neighborhood, wow, we have a bigger problem than I thought in terms of food. So I believe that Beckn absolutely can help us solve the problem, or at least address the problem in a much more efficient way than we have now, connecting the food sources to the people that need them. And I believe that that's probably going to be our first San Leandro Resilience Hub project, which we will then take to the so just to let you know, we're planning a large event conference in San Leandro, I believe the date is now going to be May 30th, Herman. I think we have a date now. And we're going to have it in two parts. So the first part will be at a place called the Zero Net Energy Center in San Leandro. It was created by unions who support the creation of good electricians. So International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, National Electrical Contractors Association, they built this beautiful building out of an old warehouse that's called the Zero Net Energy Center. It's where they train their electricians. So, hey, perfect place to have an event where we're now going to the next level with what electricity and energy can do for us. So the first, on May 30th, it'll be a 2-day event here in San Leandro, California. There'll be stakeholders from hopefully all over the world will be here, but certainly in the Bay Area, we will invite them so that we're going to showcase the proof of concept, the senior mobility project. Also the parking, we will probably have implemented some parking applications in San Leandro with Automicle by that time. And basically, it's the kickoff of Beckn in the United States. So bringing out Beckn and its potential for how it can help us solve it's our fulfillment problems. It's just fulfillment, whether it's government trying to get its services to its people and the people trying to access those services, or whether it's these multiple agencies with food that we can connect seamlessly. So if we can do that today, when an emergency happens, we will be able to connect together. But again, the apps won't work without electricity. We need energy. So again, back to resilience hubs. If you don't have electricity there, how do we make sure that these community centers that we're able to provide you needs today for your everyday living now becomes that hub where you can go and you have to pitch a tent or they have housing there. It's already been figured out. We don't have to figure it out in the moment. So that's the work that we're doing. And that's why we're starting off small with a proof of concept that we believe can go really big once people understand what it does.
I mean, I'm super uh, excited about the fact that this is kickstarting. These efforts are now shaping up in the US in a very formal manner. I know you have been at it for a very long time. I can't thank you enough for your contribution and your passion that you have shown towards
Right.
Beckn. And the, the thing that excites me the most is how will people react to it? The group that
I
all
don't
of
know.
yeah, how will they perceive it? Maybe you and me are thinking of 10 problems. What if there's a 20th problem that a person sitting in that room brings, and you're like, whoa, this light,
Exactly.
this bulb lit up. And
Right. We can't assume we know what the problems are for the community. And that's one of the biggest problems we have in leadership here. They just assume that they know what the problems are and they just the leaders take it upon themselves to prioritize things. Okay, I'm just cat cages for all the wild cats. Oh, we need a horse equestrian center. Oh my God, our infrastructure is crumbling and this is what you're focused on? I mean, literally, this is the kind of crap that I'm hearing right now, which is why you have to get involved in your local community. Because if it doesn't happen in your local community, it won't happen higher up the chain. This is all we got. In the United States, we're very clear right now that the federal government, we cannot count on them for anything. We have, in order to be resilient, or as I've said before, resilience is resistance because they don't want us to be resilient. We will be resilient. They cannot take that away from us. So that's why I invite all of you to be engaged in what we're doing here in the United States and developing the partnership. I mean, we're, here in the United States and Beckn and Ansha and Diraj and Sujit, we're all one family now in a way that I never could have anticipated 5 years ago, that we would have these international relationships. And then, of course, with Automicle in the Netherlands, let's keep building because together There is power in numbers. I'm a longtime community activist. And I know that aligning myself with other groups and other people who have similar interests is the way that you get things done. So we would love to start that revolution here in San Leandro. I know that the people around us, so you asked how do we communicate? So that's one of the challenges. You guys are going to have to help us as a community to figure out how do we communicate, because they don't really need to know about Beckn, right? The city council members, they don't need to understand Beckn. They need to understand the problem that will be solved and that we can do it with Beckn. We're the ones that need to understand how to use it. They don't. So our messaging to them has to be different than it is to the community of developers, for example. For them, they're going to go, oh, this is so cool. This is something new, exciting. Oh, you mean I can be an entrepreneur and I can make money on this? Great. But they're not the audience at this moment. The audience is the community. Get them excited about the potential of this digital infrastructure, and then we can make it happen with the developers. So the second part of what we're going to do is in the fall, after the May 30th event, we're going to invite, and we're going to be working with developers. So we're going to align ourselves with either one of the universities, UC Berkeley, Stanford. Many hackathons happen in October, November here. So then now we're going to re-engage with them at one of the university hackathons with our own Beckn, educational track, and bring in the community to help literally start solving some of these problems. So it's not just a great event that we're going to have here. By the way, Bay Area is fabulous. May 30th, yeah, you need to come down. But we're going to continue the work then into the fall to make sure that we're really establishing a Beckn beachhead here, that people are excited about using it and want to use it.
That event is just going to set so much context for all of us and possibly lay down the roadmap of how do we proceed. We bring in so much clarity on what we're doing, test the waters. It's so many things at once, and absolutely the need of the moment. If I wish I could have done it yesterday, we could have done it yesterday, but May 30th is the day where this really is brought in front of the world. Okay, hey, we are here and we're going to do this. Come join us.
Exactly. So come join us. So be looking over the next couple of weeks. We'll be rolling out, we'll be rolling out the details. We're working, of course, with the Beckn community, the leaders to actually roll this out. We have a huge group of people here in the United States who are really excited about this. So it's a lot to do between now and May, but done it before. I'm used to doing this kind of thing. Just fast, let's get it done. And we have so many wonderful people. We really want everybody to be involved in the way that they can along the different verticals that we're looking at: retail, urban areas, agriculture, industrial. What are some of the ways that we can all improve the systems and the connections with each other using Beckn? Imagine supply chain. Just imagine just a supply chain application with Beckn. Oh my goodness, it's going to just change everything. So come join us.
I think while we're also talking about the welfare of the community, it is a very important fact to bring in. And I believe that's what you're trying to do with your hackathons later in the year. While we want to support the community has to do the work themselves. Community contribution cannot be emphasized more. Without us working together, there is no community. Community is us.
Right.
We have to put in the work. And I believe developers have a role to play. People in the politics have a role to play. Bureaucrats, no matter if you're a designer, you can play a role. You can help make posters, design solutions for people, write content, do awareness. It's just endless. It's not even limited to developers, how usually technology landscapes are imagined, which is the best part. I think we are almost towards the end of the session. I think it is 9:30. So while I can keep talking to Debbie for a couple of hours, I believe this now has to come to an end. But before you leave us, Debbie, and get on with your day, any last words, any key takeaways, that any one thing that you believe people should definitely take away from this conversation that we've had today?
Start with community. If you want to radically transform your community, which I think we all need to be looking at right now because of climate change impacts, which it's much worse than we thought it was going to be and happening much faster, you have to engage with community first. Then, when the trust has been gained, you can start introducing some of the solutions to the problems they've identified as priority. That's my closing words.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you.
And so I'm sorry that we didn't have a chance to talk to any of you. I hope that we can do this again, Ansha, where I have an opportunity to actually talk to people in the Beckn community, and let's continue to grow that together.
This is just the beginning of the journey, and super
Right.
exciting things are coming up, folks. I'm not going to say too much about it. Me, Debbie, Beckn team, and a community that we have going on in the US, led by Debbie. We've been talking about some crazy ideas, coming up with great things soon. Stay tuned, be willing to contribute, show support, join the Beckn community. If you're interested, we can add you to the community calls that we do with Debbie every fortnight.
Yep.
Please participate. Please show some support. We need you. The community needs you. You need you. So
yeah, exactly. We are the leaders we have been looking for, people. That's it.
thank you, Debbie. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for being here. I really appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.